Well, the Keep America Safe Act is basically very common sense gun safety legislation. It says that we eliminate high capacity magazines, magazines that hold 30, 60, 90 rounds to one that is only 10 rounds. You don't need 30, 60, 90 rounds to go hunting. You don't need that even to protect yourself. High capacity magazines are about high capacity killing.
Growing bipartisan calls for the Trump administration to issue a report to Congress about the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The administration blew by, completely ignored a congressional deadline required by law last week to do just that. Now, two senators are leading the charge to hold the administration's feet to the fire. Those are their words. I'm joined now by one of those lawmakers, ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Good morning to you, and thank you for being here on such an important issue. Look, my colleague Jim Sciutto just pressed Mercedes Schlapp, White House Strategic Communications Director, on this, why they ignored this law. Here's what she said.
Yeah, but the president, the Congress required the White House to report back. Gave him 120 days. That's as required by law. And the White House did not report back. I mean, that's a legal requirement. What is the Trump administration waiting for?
We are waiting for the complete review. Obviously, this is a thorough process that needs to take place, and we're working through it. And again, I'd have to refer you to the State Department for specific details.
Senator Menendez, what is your response to that?
Well, my response to that's just absolutely foolish. The law is clear and direct, and the president violated the law by not giving Congress an answer to the substantive question, which is, does the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ultimately hold responsibility for the death of Jamal Khashoggi? The former chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker, and I invoked the provision of the law that allows the chairman and the ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee to make that demand upon the administration. And we did, and the president violated the law by not answering. And so we're going to both look at how we hold the administration's feet to the fire on the question, the Magnitsky question, on those potential determinations and sanctions, and then on legislation that we have bipartisan support introducing.
So let's talk about that legislation that you are proposing with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, expected to be introduced this week. What would it in effect do? I mean, how much can you push the administration here?
Well, the Syria Accountability in Yemen Act would limit arms sales to Saudi Arabia. It would sanction those who are helping the Houthis in the humanitarian disaster that is Yemen. It would also sanction those who are stopping humanitarian aid from going into Yemen. And it would directly sanction those individuals who have been responsible for the death of Jamal Khashoggi. So those are some of the things that it does. So it is a direct action with bipartisan support. Not only Senator Graham, Senator Young, Senator Collins have joined us in that legislation. So it's a very strong bipartisan piece of legislation that I'm looking forward to getting a vote on.
Let's talk about another piece of legislation that you are proposing on a very different but critically important issue. One day before the one-year mark of the massacre in Parkland, where 17 high school students were murdered. You, together with Florida Congressman Ted Deutsch, have introduced the Keep America Safe Act. Roughly outline what it would do, but also let us know this morning, because at last check you didn't have any Republican support of it. Is that still the case?
Well, the Keep America Safe Act is basically very common sense gun safety legislation. It says that we eliminate high capacity magazines, magazines that hold 30, 60, 90 rounds to one that is only 10 rounds. You don't need 30, 60, 90 rounds to go hunting. You don't need that even to protect yourself. High capacity magazines are about high capacity killing. And we've seen those in the tragedies in Parkland and throughout the country. And time can save lives. When someone has a much more limited magazine and they have to reload, that's an opportunity to attack the person who's doing the shooting. So the reality is this can save real lives. We haven't yet obtained a Republican sponsor. We have a very wide number of sponsors, both in the House and the Senate. We certainly are making overtures to Republicans, and we hope they will join us, because this is about the most common sense of the gun safety measures that we can take.
Are you confident that you will get Republican support? I understand nothing official yet, but the conversations you and your team are having, what are you learning from them?
I'm hopeful. Look, the reality is I think that our colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle cannot be beholden to the National Rifle Association. At the end of the day, they need to be beholden to the American people, who time after time in poll after poll are overwhelmingly supportive of reasonable gun safety measures. And even mainstream NRA members who I've talked to on some of these things, they actually are supportive of this type of legislation. It's the NRA leadership that is not, because they're strictly shilling for the gun lobby. So at the end of the day, I hope they will, and we will have an opportunity to put this to the test. A new Democratic majority in the House creates opportunities to actually pass reasonable gun safety legislation. I think the House is working this week on a universal background check. I'm looking forward to Congressman Deutsch, who is the person who represents Parkland and had to go through that terrible tragedy with the families in Parkland, and is putting action behind this. Get it passed through the House, create an opportunity here in the Senate to create pressure, and we will find an opportunity in a procedural way to have a vote and let the American people know who stands for reasonable gun safety measures and who does not.
Senator Bob Menendez, I appreciate you joining us on both of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.